Guys, if you are an athlete or if you're a coach or if you're just someone that is trying to help somebody get better, and if you don't have this particular element, you're not growing at your most optimal capacity. And that essential ingredient that you need is failure. And failure is huge because it's abundant in so many ways. If you can understand failure, you can not only see opportunities, you can see places where you're weak at, but ultimately you can find places where you can add value. And if you're understanding how to distill this level of information, which is painful for most, you're absolutely going to change the game. I got a guy here with me, the only coach that had the second podcast. I got Coach Nick Nash. You're gonna love this. I added another, aka Nash Ketchum. That one we're gonna keep, aka Nasharu. That's your dark side. And just recently added, and this one's for the ladies. It's Nick Hemsworth.
He said Nick Hemsworth,
bro. I had to add that.
I want to be like Nash Taki. Like
who's
Itachi.
Nash Taki?
Itachi from
Who's that?
Naruto.
Oh, okay.
Sasuke's brother.
Yeah.
He said no. He said Nash.
No,
I can think it.
Nick Hemsworth.
That's a good one.
So you got to tell me this. You're famous when you go to your grocery store and then you're like, are you like the guy on the pod? Has that happened yet for you?
No,
it's gonna happen, and when it does,
oh my gosh,
it's over.
Maybe if I'm up on this side of town, probably not in my side of town.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you go to your grocery, that's when you know you made it, and then you got to start giving me royalties or some sort.
I'll let you know. Hasn't happened yet though.
It's happened to me in Best Buy.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think you did tell me about that. Yeah, 100%.
But not video version. It was
the first one.
It was voice.
Yep.
Yeah.
So. It was the one we did during COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Be Better podcast.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Bro, isn't that kind of isn't that a crazy thought? Little tangent. Isn't that a crazy thought?
It's a crazy thought.
We put out that content and it was just like, oh, okay, cool. This is gonna give us some sort of a purpose in this time, right? Allow us to cultivate these skills. And
now we have this.
It touches lives. Yeah. Right? It touched lives in that small of a sphere that someone reached out to you at Best Buy and be like, bro.
Remember I told you this story. This is perfect because it's a failure story. Okay? Because one, I'm so mad that I was like, how come I need this mic? Or I needed like a headphone for the mic. Otherwise you couldn't hear it. Distorts. It like does this sound reverb feedback. And I'm creating these podcasts and I'm like, I'm failing left and right. And I'm so angry because I have to go back and be like, why didn't you tell me I needed a headphone? So I'm going in there super heated. Yes. I told you about this. I'm like, dude, I do not want to be.
I'm here, run me.
I'm one of the guys that don't like to go to stores. Like when my mom goes to the mall, I'm like, Mom, I'll just stay in the car. You do your thing. I'll stay in the car and I'll just like sleep or something. So I go in there. So I'm really mad. This guy knows I'm really mad because he can just kind of sense it.
You can feel it.
And then I was like, I'm looking for a headphone. I just recently shot a podcast and I'm trying to get a little better at it. And I have this like frustrated tone. And he's like, are you Royce? And I'm like, what?
No, it was like be mad because you were you was fuming. And then as soon as he asked you that, you're walking down. You were like, oh wait.
I was like, how do you know me? He's like, are you the guy like from Be Better Mindset podcast? And I was like, yeah, that's me, man. And he's like, dude, I've been listening to all of your episodes. And I'm like, no way. Nick, I'm famous.
Oh my gosh.
So that was a failure opportunity that turned into something massive. And then after that, I was like, Nick, I'm going to go shoot 7 episodes just for this guy.
Yep.
Just for this guy. So
100%.
That was.
Hey, Best Buy guy, if you're out there.
Like, dude, I'm going to get him on here.
I was about to say, give us a shout, comment, something. Get on the podcast.
I'm normally good with names, but I'm only good if I write it on the whiteboard and then I remember it. So I forgot his name, dude. But shout out to the Best Buy guy for sure. Right. So let's start. I'm sorry, guys. We went off tangent. Nick, let's start with this because the big topic is how to create like healthy failure environments. I want to first start this podcast off with, let's define it. Like, what's failure to you?
What is failure? So I liked this question, and I came up with two responses internally. The first one is, I would say more society-based, right? More fear-based, more learned behavior. And it's anything can really be perceived as a failure.
Yeah.
Right? Anything can really be perceived as a failure.
I've seen people with successes think they're like, I could have done better. I'm like, you dropped 90 points.
100%.
But I could have done better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You hit 90. You're in the 98th percentile. Yeah, but I'm not 100.
Yeah, I know.
What?
So anything can be
anything can be viewed as a failure.
Yes,
right?
Okay.
So that's, I would say, externally, that's the view of failure.
Mhm.
Internally, the view of failure is you only fail when you stop trying.
Right.
Right? That's and that could be my own personal view. But you can only fail if you stop trying.
Yes.
So that's kind of the two perceptions. And this one, like I said, is kind of a learned behavior, unfortunately. Society, how you were raised, different sorts of paradigms, matrices. And then this one, if you experience enough,
Yeah.
right? Because you can be young and experience a bunch. You can be old and not have experienced much of anything, right?
Mhm.
And I think this one comes with experience and understanding that
Yeah.
the only thing I fail is when I quit, when I no longer have the opportunity to
Yeah.
regress, right? One of the people I reached out to and had a conversation with, I was trying to think of, as we were talking, it was how many failures have I had? And then I was sitting there, I was thinking, and the only failure that I've really had is my divorce, right? And it's because we both quit trying. I quit trying, she quit trying. There's no more effort that can be put forward there, right?
Yes.
So that is the only failure that I have. But in retrospect, it's not even really a failure because it's a wonderful learning opportunity.
Mhm.
Learn more about myself, cultivated a different type of structure in the paradigms and the foundations of who I am, and been able to pivot and move on and move up and elevate from there, right?
Yes.
But that would, if under the context of what is failure, that would be that's really the only failure that's coming to mind.
Wow. But is it really a failure?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
And I think internally, the reason I view it as a failure is because there's still a little guilt and shame around it, right?
Yeah.
I've worked on it a ton. Shout out to Jim, what is his name? Altabel,
yeah.
Altabel, thank you. Wonderful life coaching, helping me get my paradigms right.
Mhm.
So I have, let's say I had a Titanic-sized load of guilt and shame in relation to that when I moved down here in 2019. Now we're on like what are those pool rafts, pool floaties? Right now we're a life preserver, right?
Yeah.
If you're drowning in the ocean, they throw it to you from the ship, little orange thing, probably about that size.
It's called disseminate. I'm just kidding. If you guys don't know that inside joke, that's the other. That was our last episode. Okay, it's a life raft boat. I can't figure it out. Floaty.
That's what I said, but I think floaties are things you put around your biceps and
it's ab floaty, bro.
Just call it ab floaty. I love it.
Okay.
I'll put it.
But here's the thing: you consider it as failure, but you failed one relationship. But I think you moved into an entirely really rich relationship, which is with yourself. How deeper of an understanding? Because I remember that was the big thing when we hired you. I was like, Nick, tell me your darkest demons. You know, what am I missing here? Because you look awesome. You've done something amazing to your body that not a lot of people can do. What's the darkest demons? And you told me that. But then I feel like that was the seed to move into a direction of, yourself more now than. I think that's one of the biggest problems where I see with relationships is they don't know themselves. And if you don't love yourself and know yourself, how can you even add another element to that?
So yes, and then let's say you don't love yourself, right? I love you with all my heart. How can you believe that I love you if you don't love yourself? You can only accept my love for you to whatever capacity you have it for yourself. So if you have 50% capacity, even though I'm trying to love you at 100%, you're only going to be able to accept 50. The other, you're not going to believe the other 50. Yes.
So your own level of love will determine how much you love the other person.
100%. And that is so.
Welcome to the Love Podcast, guys.
All right,
this
is big sexy over here. What was I gonna say in terms of? So when you love yourself, right, through that failure, right, really, really turned inward, tried to figure out the whole thing, which was wonderful. Love it, still learning from it, and learning from it to this day. But with self-love, it is once you really love yourself, you really don't care to be liked by people. It loses all weight. It loses all value. It loses all whatever.
Yeah.
right? Because once you really love yourself, you come to figure out most people don't even like themselves. And if
Yeah.
you don't like you, why do I care if you don't like me? Right?
Yeah.
So it makes it a little bit easier to navigate the
Yeah.
world when you really come to love yourself. And I have I have one of my buddies. He's talking about self-love. Like, I love me some me, right?
Yeah.
I love me some me. I love my alone time. Like, I love me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I love me. And I say
Yeah.
unfortunately because I don't share me with a lot of people, right?
Right.
But he says to be in Nick's life,
Yeah.
you have to understand Nick is his own best friend.
Exactly.
Right? And that's tough. That's
for a
the
lot of
tough
people
part.
too.
Because a lot of people aren't their own best friends. Most
Yeah.
people hate being alone by themselves.
Yeah.
They don't want to be in their thoughts. They don't want to feel the sensations and the emotions in their body.
And here's what's ironic. This just turned into a love podcast. That's why, good thing I called you Nick Hemsworth. Right? So you're in this, and this happens all the time. It's like when you're in high school, you're chasing the girl, and the girl's like, nah, I'm not interested. And then all of a sudden, this dude is like, dude, I'm good. I'm just chilling. I'm playing my sport. You know, I'm going to hang out with my boys. Every girl is attracted to that person.
What happens? They turn around, they want you.
Yeah, they turn around, they want. That's why, guys, that's why I'm calling him Nick Hemsworth. You guys don't, I'm not even, this is not a joke, right? This is true life. But I mean, that was just a tangent. We're just talking about love, but that's okay. We'll segment this part as love. Maybe I'll put a little note on there.
I love this.
Okay.
You never know what you're gonna get conversation.
So you
failure.
said, so you said failure is part internal, part
Yes,
external,
yes.
which is beautiful, and I completely agree with that. Right? The external side is what we culturally create. Like if it was a basketball game, yeah, if you had less points, you lost. That's failure. You know, and then there's this internal side of feeling always not enough and not worthy and not loving yourself. I love how you attach that. I didn't even have to come up with that. Okay. So now that we understand that there's these two components to it, there's an external side and there's an internal side. I want to talk about like healthy failure environments, because I think it requires a certain amount of care. You can't just fail all day. And here's an example of what I did. And guys, another thing that if you guys watch, like we're preaching this, but we're constantly failing and we're still learning how to keep going and keep trying. Like we're not masters at this.
I just felt the 75 hard.
Yeah.
Right?
Me too. That's why I stopped posting.
Dude,
I felt bad. I was like, Nick is going to be mad, but he probably knows already.
It happens.
But anyways, Jesus, now I feel bad. I'm having this internal battle now.
No.
Yeah, you don't feel so bad? You're like, Nick, I'm sorry, dude. I should have told you a long time ago I failed.
It's not even that. It is not even that. What, regardless, right? It is, so failure is first attempt in learning, right? I love the 75 hard because it's not a diet. It's not a fad.
Yeah.
It's not something I want to do for a short duration. It's something I want to do for a long duration. I want to do 75 for the rest of my life. I want to be 85 years old doing a morning workout, doing an outdoor workout, reading 10 pages, right?
Yeah.
Like that's something I want to do. So if you look at it in the micro, right? We failed the 75 hard. Damn. It hurts.
Yeah.
There's so many emotions that come with it. But in the macro view, what's your long-term goal?
Yeah.
Your long-term goal is make this a lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
So in the long term, you're still fine. Make some adjustments, pivot, pick yourself back up, dust yourself off.
Yeah.
Go back at it, right? Understand where you went wrong, learn from it, observe, then keep moving forward.
Here's what I learned. To do one of these for 1 hour of podcast, you need 3 hours of research. And I didn't account for that. Remember, because I was like, I'm going to shoot 3 of these, Nick. And I only accounted 3 hours, but then you multiply that by 3, it's 9 hours. So now you have 9 hours of preparation. Otherwise, the podcast is we're just going to be talking about love all day. Do you know what I mean? So like there has to be some cohesion into this. Okay, so we were talking about failure.
Yes.
Okay. So dude, I was just doing this just recently, to be honest, like a day ago. I'm driving.
Transparent. I love it.
Yeah, I'm driving about transparent podcast, love podcast. I'm driving, and I'm like, I can't believe my 2 clients canceled. That's like one of my big pet peeves. Time wasted, right? So 2 clients canceled. I had a consultation call where the person's like, I got to go think about it. Those things make me mad too. Partly for me, but also partly for them, because I'm like, you need this more than I need it. And it breaks my heart that you're just going to say you need to think about it. But if you just started today, you'd probably lose 5 pounds next by Friday. Right. So there's that component. And then I'm thinking about my coaches. I was like, why didn't that coach do that? Why didn't that leader do that? Right? Why did this person give me this comment? I'm stacking all of these things. And I started to think about it because
you're having your own internal dialogue.
I'm internal dialogue. And here's what I'm doing. So for those of you that are like in the fitness world, because we're in the fitness world, here's what I'm doing. I'm taking a barbell and I'm stacking weight, stacking.
Even if it's just fives.
Even if it's just fives, but I stack like 7 plates. I've never lifted that before. And I'm like, cool. Now I'm going to handle the problem. So here is how, for me, in creating a healthy environment, is applying the right level of stress. I call it stack it, lift it. Stack it, lift it. Stack it, lift it. Stack it, fail, or lift it, then fail. Unstack it, learn what's weak, and then stack it and repeat it all over again. That's, to me, in essence of how to create a healthy environment. And you can do this in the training world, but you can also do it in the life world. So here's how I started unstacking. I was like, I get to speak to Nick tomorrow about this concept, right? I can't believe I have this car. I don't have to pay gas anymore, right? I can't believe I get to meet this person and train this particular person. And that's gratitude is how you unstack.
Gratitude. You were gratitude stacking.
I know. That's why I love these concepts. See, but the failure. Here's another lesson. I was having this failure moments, and then because I'm stressing myself out by adding all of these talks. I'm able to see things differently. We're able to have this particular concept to share, which I think relates to more than just a person underneath the barbell. There's one of you guys right now that's constantly stacking weight and you're lifting it, where you should just lift the first one first, stack another one, get stronger, and then you'll find magic.
I love it. I'm just gonna add a little structure because I love when we do this. People are like, "Oh, this is such a good podcast." I'm like, "You guys don't understand. This is just what happens when me and Royce get in a room together."
It's a good.
So the first question you prompted me with was, how would you define a healthy environment to fail? Right, and I try to always summarize it in at least 3 points. Right, so the first point I would say, the environment has to be positive. Has to be positive, and not. I don't even know, not the toxic positivity. We'll just say that, not toxic positivity, authentic positivity, right? And I would say the second part to a healthy environment is authenticity, right? And it's no like, care, right? We talked about this however long ago. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And people will move heaven and earth for you, but only once they know, like, and trust you. And then the third, for a healthy environment to failure, I would say, is communication. And maybe they're in a jumbled order.
Learning how to absorb and give feedback.
Yes, right?
Communicating that.
Everybody communicates differently. Like today, James had the love languages written on the board. And he asked me what my love languages was, and I told him it was physical touch. And he was like, wow, I never would have guessed that. And I was just like, it's a lot easier.
Nitro cold brew. it's
I was gonna say words of affirmation, but nitro cold brew is yes.
It's food. Yes. I think it's food time.
Quality time. Quality time's huge for me. Quality time is huge. Right now we're back to love.
Affirmations too.
Word of affirmations. Yeah, that's what I thought would have been your one, but I could see quality time.
Nitro cold brew, then affirmations.
Tara, shout out to Tara, nitro cold.
She knows. Oh, she already knows that for sure.
She's like, I got 7 in the fridge for you. So those are the 3 things I would need or want to define a healthy environment to fail.
Okay, I want to unpack this masterclass that you're creating right now. All right, you can't just be like, hey, dude, there's these 3 things. Let's go to the next question. You just dropped 3 massive bombs there. So let's talk about positivity real quick. Because you said you need to foster a positive environment. Where does that start for you? How do you, like, if you were to pragmatically build a positive environment? Because I think we have a very positive environment. Our coaches fail all the time. all the time,
Mm-hmm.
almost too much. We're like,
Mm-hmm.
you guys are addicted to this.
Mm-hmm.
How do you foster a positive environment from the top? Like you're the coach,
Mm-hmm.
right? How do you do it?
It's a good question. This was not on the questions list. It's a wonderful question.
I gotta throw some wingers on
I
there,
know. It's a
dog.
good one. It's a good one. I would say, as a coach or as a leader, really cultivating the mentality and the understanding that everything is happening for you and not to you.
Okay.
Right? To you is victim's mentality. For you is victor's mentality.
Okay.
Right? Everything is happening for you. Right? And when you can understand that perspective and really incorporate it, it's really easy to reframe just about everything. And I think we're really fortunate. The coaches that we do have are positive for the most part. You get to a certain level and it's really easy to start listening to what people are saying, also listening to what people are not saying, also reading their body language, also understanding their tone and their energy. But I think that's what's needed to cultivate is it starts with the internal work, right? As the coach and understanding the reframe of everything in my life, right? Me failing this 500-pound deadlift is ultimately happening for me. Why? Because now I understand what 500 pounds feels like. I couldn't comprehend what 500 pounds felt like before that. I couldn't comprehend what a 375 back squat felt like before that, right? Once my body feels it, my body can now, understand you just raised the bar. Now there's this new stimulus. Let's go chase after that.
Dude, guys, if you're listening to this is how good music is made. Right? You ever see like Justin Bieber's hit Wonder? Everyone's like, that was a good song. But prior to that, it was bouncing ideas. I want to make your concept even better. A lot of my concepts that I created was a seed from Nick's, by the way. So number one, to create a positive environment is your ability to reframe. And it was your narrative. Going into it. That is like the first thing. It has to start with the coach. It has to start with you. Everything that is happening is for me and it's not against me. Going into a situation like that, you feel unstoppable.
World's your oyster.
Yeah, you're like, oh my gosh, you failed your back squat? This is great. Now I get to see this.
People hate it when you do that too. Like, I failed at 325. You failed at 325. High five. They're like, it's like, no, you tried.
Yeah. And I'm like, and dude, it's so funny because we do this all the time. And I'm like, your glutes suck. That's all we got to do. We just got to like do side bends. Your core is awful. Let's go do 400 sit-ups 3 times a week. You know, and like, and you'll say the same things to me. You're like, dude, you need to roll your calves. And I'm like, no, I don't, Nick. He was like, bro, I experienced my shin splints, all of those things. And you're like, you got to roll your calves, man. And I'm like, he's probably right. Right. So, we're good from that blurry.
Yeah, I was like, I hear beeping. I don't know what's going on. I just wanted to check.
Good. But anyways, like those are, so reframe was one of the major elements to create a positive environment. The second thing is listening. So you got to be so present. If you guys haven't listened to Fill Your Cup Up, get that out.
We'll link it somewhere.
It'll be in there. Maybe I'll put another text so they can watch what that is. In order for you to get present, you got to learn how to do self-care, like learn your self-care formula. So if you're able to listen, you can see those data points. Because if you're stressed out and you see somebody back squat, you're not going to see the nuances when their knees are diving in, when their chest is falling apart, right? Maybe their hips are so congested and tight. They might even they don't even know how to brace. Like, how can you see some of those little nuances if you're stressed out yourself? Because you need to be so present to be seeing some of those elements. Failure is so abundant in terms of data. But if you're not present, one, and you're not reframing, two, you can't even see some of those things. What was your third one, bro?
I don't remember. Let me see. Did I write it down?
Yeah.
Oh, and it's the premise of like know, like, trust comes from cultivating the relationships.
Oh, communication. Oh, and then eventually, oh my gosh, this thing is getting pretty. Okay, so we got reframe, we got being present. Now you got to be able to take what you saw, and now you got to communicate it in a way that this person can digest it. And this is where the art of feedback comes in. That's when you're just like, Nick, you got some sick shoes. but your squats is trash.
I heard that in Madison's
right?
podcast. Yes.
Yeah, and it works so well.
Mhm.
That the compliment sandwich.
Mhm.
You're like, dude, and you can do it so many different ways. Nick, you have the potential to be able to squat 5 plates.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, your glutes is like the size of a baby fetus. So we gotta go work on your glutes this
Baby
next week.
fetus. Oh my
Do you
god.
see what I mean?
Yes.
So like distilling it in a way, it's friendly, it's kind of hilarious,
Mhm.
it's fun, because it would be different. It was like, dude, you need to work your butt. And you
It's-
didn't say anything,
Go ahead.
I would feel attacked.
Mhm. It's tactful. That's what I was
Mhm.
going to say. It's very tactful.
Yeah.
Trying to understanding your audience, right? Whole communication, 5 different aspects to your being. We can go over that, but
Yeah.
So feedback. How valuable is feedback for you?
For me,
Yeah, for you. I'll answer the question, but
it's
I'm asking you first.
everything for me. Feedback. We've talked about this as one of our values. Feedback is our one of the major elements of growth.
Mhm.
If you take, it's why it's part of our like SOPs, our standard procedures at the end of our sessions. Give me some feedback.
Mhm.
And here's what's crazy, Nick. We do it a lot.
Mhm.
How often people are like, "What? Why is he asking me for feedback? I'm on the
Mhm.
spot."
Because they have a negative connotation in it, in their own head, right? They're bringing negativity to it. We dropped that a while ago. It's like,
Yeah.
cool, give me feedback.
He's like, "I got the good. Give me the bad stuff, man."
100%. I love.
Yeah.
So I'm in yoga teacher training, and we give feedback.
Yeah.
And in yoga teacher training, you give feedback as shout out Vibe Yoga,
Mhm.
as in like 1 to 3 affirmations, and then
Mhm.
opportunities for growth.
Right.
Everybody will give you affirmations all day.
Yeah.
You ask them for the growth, and they're just like, they're good about it. They'll give it to you, but there's a little bit of resistance to it, right? And I appreciate all the affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
Been doing this for long enough that I understand. I love me some me, right? So I understand I'm good at what I do. I'm not the best. I'm always working on it. I'm honing my craft. I want to be a master one day, right? But I understand I'm good at what I do. So you can give me affirmations or you can keep them. I'm cool with either. Where's my opportunity for growth? You love me, you'll give me the opportunities for growth, right? So feedback is super valuable for me. It is, like we said, it's one of the pillars here. It is the utmost valuable. I found though, go ahead.
I think it's oxygen.
100%. Oxygen for the internal fire or for the fire of growth.
Oxygen to the internal fire. What did you just... You need to quote that. Because what oxygen does, you feed oxygen. I'm just the chemist side of me. It starts turning into a bigger fire. Sorry, man.
Ujjayi pranayam.
That's the power of the nitro cold brew. Okay.
So where do you find your richest moments for feedback?
Dude, that's such a question. It's failure for me. 100%. The richest moments that, at least in my experience, has always been there. And I always get the richest feedback when I'm in the most pain. Whether it's physically, okay, or whether it's internally and emotionally. Physically, here's a lesson. You know I'm the best mobility coach ever. You see Nick, he's shaking his head because the only time I do mobility is in the present. That's why I call him Nash Ketchup, right? Because he catches me, he's like, do your mobility. That's the only time that I do it. But the only time that I really like dive into a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day program is in moments where I'm in massive amounts of pain. And that's where I have the largest growth. Now I have an ability to be like, I can triage. Now I'm avoiding it. I know that in the back of my head, and it's like, roll out your calves, roll out your psoas, roll out your quads, and then you won't experience it. And I start doing that now. But without pain, I would have never, one, been interested in it. And then two, I wouldn't even, like the importance of it would be so nominal that doing it once a week wouldn't do anything.
You wouldn't see any results.
Yeah. So that was like the physical side for sure.
What is pain?
Pain physically, it's...
What is pain?
Bro, what are you throwing some...
I'm just curious. What is pain?
Honestly, like burn. You know what I mean? Pain is when you can't sleep because you're just aching physically for me. Dude, unless you're just trying to trick me.
I'm not. Pain is just communication.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, it is. Oh, yeah.
Right? It's just something's trying to communicate with you. Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually.
Yeah.
If you're in pain in any of those buckets, something's trying to communicate with you.
Oh, yeah. So you were the one that taught me that. was like, why is my knee hurt? He's like, something's wrong with my knee. And you're like, Royce, your knee's not the problem. That's just the communication point.
Mm-hmm.
Your problem is in the hip. Your problem's in the calf. Your
Problems
problem's in
in
the
the
pinky toe. I
quad.
was like, what are you talking about?
Like,
And he was like, let me show you. You like floss my pinky toe. I'm like, my knee doesn't hurt.
100%.
Listen, if you're trying to lose weight, but you're just frustrated because you just can't seem to see any results, we would love to help you out. Now, we've been helping thousands of our athletes over the course of a decade by crafting personalized programs that are not only sustainable, but also effective. Now, if you're ready to transform your health, click on the show notes below, book a call with one of our coaches. We'd love to help you out. Now back to the show. Peace.
So richest moments for feedback, right?
Uh-huh.
Richest moments for feedback for me. It's really, so I love feedback.
Yeah.
It really fuels me, and I really appreciate it. Feedback is tough for me to take from everybody who wants to give me feedback.
Yeah.
Because certain people, I have to hear what it is that you're trying to say behind what it is that you're saying, right? So I, me, my mind, think, feel. If there's a ton of ego in how you're giving me your feedback, now I have to sort through all of the information you're giving me to try to figure out what it is that you're trying to tell me. Whereas if you're trying to give me feedback, the best way to give me feedback and how I find it the most valuable is state your intentions. Be like, hey, Nick, my intention is to give you some feedback. We're going to do it this way. Cool. Now you've set a baseline. Now I get to be like, oh, okay, cool. What are you saying? Is what you're saying along that baseline? Or is it skewed a little bit, right? What you're saying and where your intentions, are they lining up or are they not? Right? So that's a tough part about feedback. But I love feedback, and I love when people are able to give me feedback. And the richest moments of feedback for me are in the present, right? I love when people give me the feedback. One of the highest compliments you can give me as an individual or as a coach is, hey, I was about to do this thing, and then I thought of you, or like you popped up on my shoulder, you were talking to me in the back of my head, so then I did more. And like I blew it out of the water, right? Like I was gonna go deadlift, and I was gonna deadlift this and be like, oh, do I think I can do more? And then I had the Nick in my head go, hey, put some weight on your barbell, bitch. Right? It's lightweight, pick it up. Right? And then they do it and they're like, yo. And that's one of the best compliments you can give me, right? But the only way to be able to cultivate that with people is I have to be present with you in all the moments before, right? So the richest moments of feedback for me are in the moment, because I don't have to decipher anything before or after I get to be present, right? And what I mean by that is, if I'm coaching you, and I want to come up and coach you, and I step into your space and you step away from me, cool. I'm taking that as feedback, right? Now it's a matter of, okay, do you not like space? Did I come up on you and you weren't expecting me? Do you have to know, like, and trust me a little bit more before you're comfortable with me being in your space? Because I like to be close. And I don't like to yell a bunch unless I have to. But if I'm coaching, I'm trying to be just right in your ear real quick, give you a couple of points, and then move on. So that way you can continue. So the richest moments for me are in the present, right? If I step into you to give you coaching and you step away, oh, okay, cool. There's a little bit of whatever, right, that I just need to be aware of and navigate around.
This is so good, because I just experienced this like yesterday with Madison. Shout out to Madison. Right? And I love feedback. But then we were talking about, where's this feedback coming from? Sometimes they can be in a space of negativity that you didn't create, that they've created. They might be having a fight somewhere else. You know, something might be going on in their life. You ask for feedback, and that feedback is like that energy. Like, I don't like, where is it coming from? And then you ask, like, where is it really coming from? And then we distilled it. I don't want to unpack Madison's work.
I got you.
But she was like, oh my gosh, I apologize. It's coming from this. He's like, oh, cool. Okay, I get it now.
Transference of energy.
Yeah.
I think that leads us beautifully into our next point, right? Why do you think people avoid failure and also become helicopter parent for their clients? Right? So I think the helicopter parent for their clients, I think that's first let's ask or define, why do we think people avoid failure? Why do you think people avoid failure?
They don't want them to experience the level of pain that they've experienced in some sort internally.
100%.
And they haven't properly processed the abundance of that pain. So they haven't cultivated the fruits of its essentially labor just yet. Trauma is trauma when it's not fruitful yet. But trauma can be one of the most powerful things. I've seen people with massive trauma. I'm like, how did you turn that into a public speaking, and now you're changing millions of people? So people that are helicoptering, at least in my view, they haven't properly like just absorbed that pain and how much growth it created. So, and that's how I look at it. Like, I'll do the helicopter side, and I'm over there judging them, by the way. And I'm not perfect. I'm not like the best parent in the world. You know, my son wants to go play at the park. I'm doing Murph on the pull-up bars. Oh, by the way, dude, this is a good story. You're going to love this. I'm doing the pull-ups. He's trying to do the pull-ups. He starts doing something called skin the cat, which you do all the time. And I don't think he's ever done it before. You know, I'm doing it, right? I'm smashing it out. And then he's like, Dad, look. And he does a skin the cat, and he like slips. And he goes, boom, crunches the face head first, Scorpion. Hits his hands. He cut it. Oh, yeah. And then one of the parents are like, and he goes, I'm good. And he does it again. You know?
Back on the horse.
Yeah. Yep, and then like literally 5 minutes later, a kid trips and he starts just bawling,
losing his
out
mind.
Of control. While this kid just scorpions doing this. And you know, I think kids internally can detect that you in return also are okay with failure. Now, there's obviously something could have happened 100%. To him.
Yep.
But that's like the biggest thing in terms of why people helicopter is because they just haven't properly distilled the value that it created. And if they just spent time internally just analyzing how much value it brought them, then they can then physically they will let people fail. And that's something that I'm constantly trying to learn, because and everyone has different capacities too. Like I could load your barbell to 315, but I can't load somebody else 315. It'd just be negligent. So there's the being present in the moment of understanding how much stress that they can take at the time of their life and the history that they've had in the past. Like, how much can they take? And sure, sometimes you in that process as a coach, you will fail too. You're like, Nick, I'm so sorry. I think I gave you too much clients. I'm so sorry I gave you too many hours. And we've done that before too. We've burnt you out before, right? I didn't know, like my capacity, I've done all of the classes at some point, and I'm running from that lens, but you guys have different lives. So learning that and also be like, okay, let's pull this back because we're not ready just yet.
100%. So. I love that. So why do I agree with you? We're in sync in terms of why people avoid failure. It hurts.
Yeah.
People don't like to do uncomfortable things, right?
Yeah.
People don't like to do uncomfortable things. And then I also think we're hardwired from a neurological standpoint to avoid hard things, right? Like your brain is hardwired to keep you from doing the hard thing, to keep you alive, right? So that's something you'll always end up fighting. And then becoming the helicopter parent for your clients. I think this is well-intentioned. I think it comes from a place of love and compassion. It is, I don't have kids. I'm not blessed with that yet. If that's in my lifetime, wonderful. If not, I'll be the best uncle I can be, right? Fun uncle. Come on, I wanted the coffee to come out your nose. Okay. But I think it's well-intentioned. And again, I don't have any kids, but I have like 50 to 100 kids. And why do I say that? Because every adult has an inner child in them that needs to be validated and heard.
Exactly.
Everybody, right? This is when I was in my mid-20s. This was a really big revelation for me because I was like, cool, I don't have to deal with kids. I get to deal with adults. Wonderful. Adults are way better. Yeah. No, adults are just kids with bills and bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? That's
sometimes it's worse.
Yeah. I mean, you know. At least, you know. But it's well-intentioned, right? But just like any parent, if I love you, right, the observation, right? If I love you, I don't want you to experience pain, right? Because I don't like to experience pain. So what am I going to do? I'm going to stop you from experiencing pain. No matter how well intentioned it, in yoga, what do they say? It basically stops your suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And you're on the other side of your suffering is meaning and purpose and growth.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to stop your suffering, it's a transference or a projection of whatever my inner child needed to feel validated and feel heard, right? It has nothing to do with you and has everything to do with me. And it's not supposed to be that way.
Yeah. You're almost projecting your limits at that
1,000% projecting your limits, right? And that's the tough part, talking about fitness.
My gosh.
That's the tough part when you have coaches who coach and don't do the workout versus coaches who do coach and do the workout, right? It is, you can just tell in the nuances of how they say things, because their projections, their limits are coming off in what is capable. But what is capable for you and what is capable for me are in two totally different places. I'm not supposed to coach you from my capacity of capability. I'm supposed to coach you from endless, limitless possibilities. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, you don't even have to say that. Here's what you guys just dropped. If you guys are listening to this, if you want to be an extremely effective coach, don't coach from your own limits. Coach from what God's potential is for this person. It took me, I wish I could be like, oh yeah, my first 15 years, I was coaching from God's potential. Like, I'm looking at you from God's potential. But probably my first 5 years, I was like, I don't want to hurt this person. Like, they're not going to re-sign with me. But now, hopefully you can see it, that I'm coaching you from a person that's not even been created yet. There's so many moments I'm like, Nick, like I gave you a feedback on public speaking. I didn't.
Bro, I've been freaking thinking about that so much.
I didn't coach you from what your limit. I coached you from. I was like, Nick, if you just seen some of the numbers you're putting out, you could be one of the most prolific coaches, prolific speakers, prolific keynote speaker out there. And I want you to understand this. And I wasn't like, dude, I've never even been there. Because if I coach you from that position, then I would be like, yeah, you can be where I'm at. I'm coaching you beyond where I could potentially be. So that is, if you want to be one of the best coaches in the world, coach people from their potential and not your limits.
That is we kind of talked about it last time. As a coach, I have the beautiful opportunity and beautiful responsibility to see you for where you're at and for where you could possibly go.
Yes.
Everything that got you to this point, I care, right? But I only care as much as it pertains to you in this very moment, right? And why you are or not executing, right? I'm not trying to coach you from back here. I'm trying to coach you from up here, right? So that way we can just progress forward.
100%.
So that is a very tough concept for people to come on to and for them to experience. Is I can't coach you from where I'm at.
Yeah.
I got to coach you
for
where you can go.
Yeah.
Right. That's why I enjoy just watching everybody work out. I'm always watching everybody work out. Right. Even when I'm not paying attention, I'm paying attention. That's how annoying my attention is. But if I see certain things, right, in people, I'll go foster it. Right.
Yeah.
I'll go light that fuel. And I'll push you to fail. Everybody needs to fail, especially in the gym. Right. And I think another big component to failure is the reason there's this negative stigma against it externally and internally is because whoever gave you permission in your life to fail?
No one. No one except like Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins.
100%. Right. Super high level guys.
Jim Altavell too.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
Nobody has really ever been given permission to fail. So that's why it's this big scary monster underneath your bed or in the closet. Once someone gives you permission to fail, it's not so scary.
Yeah.
Right. It's what did Jim say? There's no shame in the light. There's no shame and guilt in the light. You bring that all to light, and it's not this big scary monster.
Yeah.
It's just something you gotta chip away at.
Yeah.
But so it's one of two things have to happen. When you're a child, someone has to give you permission to fail.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
I just ran through a segment because I do a lot of nutrition coaching for people, at least 30 of them. And one of the athletes texted me. He's like, I just feel really, really guilty about telling you this. I had a cheat meal. Right? And that is the opportunity for you to build that relationship that it's okay to fail. And now I'm distilling back. I was like, how come my clients are getting like why are they getting more results? I'm texting them and I was like, dude, amazing. I'm excited that we got that data point. Now let's go see the outcome Friday when we weigh in. And then they're like, what? You're not mad? I was like, no. I was like, no, I'm not mad, but what if this little component where it was like a cheeseburger and you still lost weight? What would now? And then they were like, I don't know. And then she lost 2 pounds. It was like, wait. And then that breaks the belief that, wait, failure has its benefits.
Isn't it also just interesting to think about guilt and shame, right? Our emotions, and they're held in the body. So if you're feeling heavy, if you're feeling guilt and shame in regards to a meal that you had, the meal's sitting in you, right? Yeah. Longer, but it's also emotionally heavy, right? Yeah. So there's your 2 pounds.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's easy for us once you understand it's a circumstance, right? Like for her, for this person, male, female, shim, whatever. For them, it was Everest. It was a world. It was a Titanic of a thing, right? But for you, it's just a circumstance. It's a data point.
It's just one data point out of all. You know, for me, I had so much confidence because this person worked out 4 times already. They've been doing 10,000 steps. Out of the 30 meals that they had throughout the week, it was 1 meal out of 29. Yo, I think we put so much pressure on ourselves that the coach that you've hired is going to be so disappointed, which I think is remember we talked about this. What's the difference of a judge and a coach? A judge will watch like, okay, it's a no rep. It's a no rep. A coach will be like, dude, that's a no rep, but in order for you to get a good rep, we got to improve your mobility. No one likes being judged. No one paid for a judge. They pay for a coach. It's like, I know what my limits are, but I want to get to my potential. And it's such a nuanced narrative. The moment you look at their movement, you're like, oh, this person has the capacity to do this. The way you naturally program, the way you naturally change your class just changes in general. I see it in your class all the time. I'll see you look at people's shoulder capacity and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to go do some shoulder range of motion, you know, instead of just like, hey, we're just going to, you know, just put 5, let's just do PVC pipe. I've never seen you just do that. You're like, no, I need you to do this mobility prior, and then we'll do the movement regardless. And I think I think
the beautiful part about that is a lot of people don't understand that the body is just constantly adapting. You give it a stimulus consistently enough, it's going to adapt to it, whether it's CrossFit, Pilates, yoga, whatever, right? So if you have a lack of range of motion somewhere, chip away at it. You chip away at it consistently enough, your body will start to adapt to whatever it is you're chipping away at.
Yeah. Oh, people overcomplicate it.
Oh, 100%.
They just don't want life. Yeah, they just don't want that stress. And here's like my thing with stress or failure or rejection. The quality or the success of your life is all dependent in your capacity for rejection, your capacity for failure, your capacity for pain, and the way you reframe all of those 3 things will dictate how far you get in life.
And the reframe's a growth.
Facts.
So in relation to failing, right? To fail, there's some risks that's involved, right? So my question to you is, how do you balance encouraging risk-taking and maintaining safety in your training? That was a good question.
Yeah. So that's where the art comes in. And I think because I've hurt clients before, for sure. And I've hurt myself before, for sure. So that's where the delicate art is. So one, I don't think you can avoid that.
It's a part of the process.
It's part of the process. If you truly believe that failure and pain has this level of optimal growth, you will hit that inevitably. The only thing you need at that point is the internal narrative.
Mm-hmm.
All you need at that point is what you just said. Everything that's happening to me is for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's really all you need. So, but there is a negligent point where you're just applying stress for no reason for people,
Mm-hmm.
and then they get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've seen that element as well. And that's the secondary component. The primary component is you're applying so much stress to yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
And then you project it to other people. So I've done that too.
Mm-hmm.
I do so many crazy workouts, and then I push you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I push you. Tara's like, you're a driver.
Mm-hmm.
You know that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're just naturally driving these people without you even doing anything, which can be bad sometimes.
Mm-hmm. It's like with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're with you because you do all these extremely hard shit. You're like David Goggins of people.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, I want to be like David Goggins. I got to go. I'm looking forward to working out with you 3 times a week and I got to go.
Yeah.
Right? And just understanding the impact that your presence has. Right?
Yeah.
You have to moderate and modulate based off of that. Right? So how do you balance encouraging risk-taking and maintaining safety in your training? I loved this question. It was such a beautiful question.
Yeah.
For me, it's always about safety first, right?
100%.
I always go, I don't care how much weight you move. I care how well you move it.
Yeah.
And I have a buddy at St. Rose, shout out Victor. He loves and hates when there's somebody new in class on deadlift day. Yeah. Because I'll start queuing him up on a couple of different things, and then he'll throw his hands up in the air like, oh, here comes a dissertation on the deadlift, right? Yeah. Because I've broken it down in so many different ways, so many different facets. Yeah. And he's giving me shit, and I appreciate it. But I know, because on the other half, he's an engineer. He has to understand every aspect of it and how it works and what sensations he's supposed to feel in his body for him to be able to execute it at a high level. He's been with me 2 years, 3 years, and even to this day, probably every other week or so, at least once a month, he's coming to new revelations. Like, bro, like how you've said to deadlift this, I finally clicked and I did it in the workout and the weight became super light. And I was like, 100%. Yeah. Right. So it's understanding that I care more as a coach. I care more about how well you move the weight, more so than I care about how much weight you move. Because I know if you move it well, right, at a little weight, and then you're consistent on it, the big numbers come, right? And then there's also an element of if we start off small and we gradually get bigger, make sure your foundation's there, make sure your technique's there. Like we said, the bumps and bruises, they're going to come, right? We're starting at A. C is a 500-pound deadlift. B is what we have to go through, right? B is that undulation, that growing process, right? Understanding how much your body can take and where it's at. And then also understanding when we encounter the bumps and bruises along the way, what are we going to do for them, right? And that's your opportunity as a trainer or as a coach to give them soft tissue work, to help them to understand and cultivate that relationship of you care, right? Some of the athletes who've been with me for the longest, they'll tell you when we started 3 years ago, I would always hound home like, if something hurts, still show up to the gym. I need to know about it. Why? Because then we can do something about it. Okay, if you don't show up, I can't help, right? And then that's because there was a phase where we've lost people before because they tweak this and then they're gone for 2 weeks. They come back, they blow themselves out in a workout because they've been gone for 2 weeks and they just want to feel good. And then they're hurt again. And then all of a sudden it's CrossFit, functional fitness, the gym hurt me. Yeah. Right? Go ahead.
Oh my gosh, Nick, so I'm thinking about this one. How do you moderate a healthy failure environment is what the coach celebrates. And dude, you do a good job celebrating when they do mobility, when they warm up their glute correctly. He's like, dude, oh my gosh, that is the best movement I've ever seen. And it's an empty barbell. If the coach is celebrating the 405, the 505 more than the actual mobility, the technique, the nutrition, you coming in when you're injured, your client's going to assume that you're more interested in the outcome than the actual process. right? Someone came in the other day that was injured,
Mm-hmm.
and I celebrated that.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my gosh, you're savage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can become a very dangerous athlete. The ones that come in when they're injured and they start working on that injury,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh. And then when people have a PR, I'll just give just like a nonchalant,
Mm-hmm.
nice work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm going to celebrate that too,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not going to be like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not tearing up that you got a 405.
Mm-mm.
You rarely see me do that.
Mm-hmm. I'm tearing up that your low back no longer hurts because you've been doing mobility and stretching it out for the past 2 weeks, so that way you could go and hit that PR of whatever.
That's how you foster a healthy environment.
Mm-hmm.
It always starts from the top.
Mm-hmm.
What are you celebrating?
Mm-hmm.
What you're celebrating inside your hour, inside your 1 month, if you're taking care, inside your classroom, will dictate if it's a healthy failure environment or not.
Mm-hmm.
Are you celebrating all of the A's, or are you celebrating all of the F's?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's going to dictate how impactful you are as a coach,
Mm-hmm.
because it's backwards. And that's why I'm so like tough on the education system, because they celebrated the A's more than the F's.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? When you're in entrepreneurship, 90% of my experiences are F's.
Mm-hmm.
And it's those F's that's allowed me to start skill stacking, communication, video, tonality, eye language.
100%.
You know what I mean?
100%.
We're dropping too many bombs.
I know,
It's
right?
illegal.
So, right, if the foundation, the technique is there, moving well is there,
Yeah.
right? What that does is, I was having a conversation with my mom. Shout out to my mom. I always love having these type of conversations because I really enjoy the way her brain works, right? So I broke it down to, is like, I don't care what you move, I care how well you move it.
Yeah.
And then I know over time you're consistent enough moving that weight well, eventually you're going to PR.
Yeah.
And so then into the risk taking portion, my mom, she brought up the point, and I didn't think about it until she gave me the perspective of what is being done.
Yeah.
Is you're cultivating and fostering an environment for confidence.
Okay.
Because if I can get you to move well, right, and you take those little itty bitty jumps with me, by the time you get up to your PR, I don't have to say anything, because you already understand in your body that the weight that you just did was easy for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then usually that's some of the best feedback moments for me, again, is when we've worked for long enough that you do a weight that was like your old 1 rep PR and you do it for like 5 reps.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I don't know if I should. And then in the back of your mind, you're like, yeah, I should. And then you look at me and I'm like, come on, now, you know we should. And then it's such an easier conversation on the back half to get you to go after that PR, because we've celebrated and we've worked through the process of going to A to B. C is the end goal, right? But you have to get to and get through B to be able to get to C. So we celebrate the small wins. We put a little ointment on your aches and your bruises, right? To be able to make sure that all the while what we're doing right here is we're building, we're fostering, we're cultivating confidence. The more confident you are, the easier it is to take risks. If you're not confident, it's really hard to take a risk, because if you fail, when you inevitably fail, the world's over. But if we've allowed you to fail little bit by little, getting you to just understand failure is a part of the process and get you to enjoy and love and be detailed and be present in the process. When you fail at your C goal, it's not really a failure.
I love it.
Does that make sense?
Dude, what you just distilled there, to create a healthy environment for failure, is to create little segments in their experience of building little components of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
What you said in terms of just like, if you just deadlifted your max 3 more times for it, you don't even have to touch the 20% over your max. Let's just do 80%. You did 80%, you used to do it 3 times. Let's just do 5. And then you celebrate those moments, and it builds this momentum. It builds this confidence.
Creates a monster.
Dude, and I think it's this, you can do the same thing in life too. You're like, why don't you just do 3 more of what your old capacity was? Right? You had 2 clients. What if you did 4 clients? Remember 2 clients, you were like stressing out? It's like, yeah, I was stressing out. Let's do 4 more. Right? Or just take that 2 and then help them even more. Apply more service, and then they get even more comfortable. They start building. I was like, maybe I could lead 3 other trainers. I was training 7 clients. Maybe I could lead one trainer now. And those are like ways you can build their capacity to fail, because I think that is an art as well.
And I think if you're not, like you said, celebrating the small wins, if you're not being intentional there, it's really tough. Once you get over here, these conversations are a lot tougher, and the person's going to view it more as they're being attacked than, hey, you just, come on, man, you're not doing what you can do. We both know what you can do, and that's not what you can do. Why are you not executing?
Right.
Does that make sense?
There's another part that you distilled there. I think an important piece is you need to track it, a version of tracking it. What did they do a month ago? So tracking it. So like if you want to create and cultivate a healthy failure environment, make sure you're tracking their progress in some form. It doesn't have to be maniacal. You're like, oh, it was 7:31 and it was the second rep after 85 pounds. Like there's pockets of testing, there's pockets of measuring, and then you can use that as confidence. You can use that as evidence that you can handle the next challenge.
100%.
Nugget bombs, bro. Hold on. So I got a client here in a little bit.
We got like 4 minutes.
But I wanna add this. I wanna add this as my final question, Nick, because we've been asking what makes a good coach. I'm gonna bash on this. What is one thing that makes a bad coach? And we could end on this. So
knowing it all.
Explain to me.
You know-it-alls that are coaches. And when you know it all, you coach from a place of do as I say. That'll get you somewhere.
It will,
It'll get you somewhere. But eventually, people will stop doing as you say because it no longer resonates.
Yes.
Because you're coming from the managerial mindset. You're not coming from the leadership mindset.
Yes.
A leader doesn't say do as I do. Or a leader doesn't say do as I say, right? They're moving from the space of do as I do, right? So know-it-alls, I think, is what makes a bad coach, because you've capped yourself.
Yeah.
And therefore you've capped everybody you're going to come into contact with. That's why when I walk into the gym and there's a tough workout on the board, and people are all like, oh, this is the hardest, this part sucks, and it's like, oh, it's not doable. I've had conversations where I just look at people and I'm like, hey, cool. I don't live in your reality. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I just move on with my life.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes. So dude, there's a story here.
With it.
Because I joined these little mastermind groups where everyone's just better than me. And I'm telling, this guy's asking me questions. I didn't know who this guy was. And I'm like, yeah, we're doing this much in revenue. You know, I got a few clients here. You know, we got 3 gyms. We had 3 gyms at the time when I was in this mastermind. And I'm telling everything about myself like I knew everything. And then a guy comes up and he's like, we're having lunch because there's a lunch segment after this mastermind. He was like, you know who that is? And I was like, no, I don't. That's the trillionaire. And I was like, what? I was like, trillionaire? He's like, yeah,
with a T?
he owns, with a T. Like he owns X, Y, and Z. And I felt so dumb. I felt so dumb. And here's this guy that looked like he was clueless. And here's a message for all the coaches. If you want to be really effective and you really, really, truly want to know it all, you'll know you're going the right path when you start to see that you don't know anything.
You don't know anything. The more you learn, the less you know.
Yeah. And I started, and that lesson like still hits me deep, because now I'm like, I got to be like this trillionaire guy because he knows something that I know. And he's like, oh my God. He was so curious. He was like, how are you working out? Like, what do you mean 75 days? He had a heart attack. He was like, your body can do that? And he was asking all these questions, and I'm like giving him my highlight reels, and he was teaching me a lesson there. At every level of where you are in your influence, whether you're a coach, a teacher, an entrepreneur, there's more to learn. And in fact, there's even more than you realize.
Incomprehensible how much there is to learn.
Game changer. So guys, if you want to be an awesome coach, don't know it all. Or try to know it all, but at the end of that path, you're going to be like, I don't know anything, which is beautiful. Nick, another amazing podcast. Guys, I'll put the other link of his last one so you guys can know what we're talking about in terms of getting present, because I think it's special. Where can they find you aside from Albertsons?
Albertsons. Near the perfect
Trader
bars.
Joe's probably. You go Trader Joe's?
I go to Albertsons. I live right next to Albertsons. Okay. Near the perfect bars and the fruit.
Okay.
Impetus Accountability on IG. Yeah, that's
cool.
That's the only place I'm at.
Dude, I'm pumped.
I appreciate you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one.
Peace.